Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator, coming back to you with another video. In this video, I would like to talk about courage and vulnerability. A Call to Courage by Brené Brown just came out on Netflix, and I highly recommend it for everyone, especially if you are in a relationship or have children, but it's pretty good for everybody. And I just want to speak to the points of the talk that spoke to my artistic side. This isn't even half the stuff that she spoke about in the hour-long special, but I did want to talk about courage and vulnerability because I think that is huge as an artist. So one thing she mentioned in A Call to Courage is that we have to put ourselves out there, and we engineer smallness by not putting ourselves out there. And I have been working on that a lot with my art, not really with my personal life, because I do tend to put myself out there in my personal life with like volunteering and stuff. But with my art specifically, it has been very small, and I feel like I could be a much better artist if I spent more time in my art, more time creating. And then 2016 was a big year in that it was hashtag action and execution. So trying to put art out there, no matter if I thought it was perfect or right, I just wanted to put it out there for the masses. And then doing these like art challenges that I've been doing, that's a big thing about putting my art out there. And art challenges forces me to create art, even if I'm not able to create it for the entire month. It forces me to think of things to create, actually execute it, actually put it out there. So in that I was maybe afraid of what people would think of my art, I was definitely engineering smallness and only keeping my art to myself, or only putting out art that I felt looked really good. And so I plan to continue doing like art challenges and just continue to working on things that I want to learn, and then putting it out for public consumption, just so, not for like feedback. I mean, there are spaces that you specifically can go for feedback, but I'm just in a space of trying to do it at all right now. So feedback is cool, and I do have like different mentors and different people that I can go and send my stuff specifically to if I want to know, okay, well, how can I do this better? But currently I'm in a space where it's just like, get it out there, be an artist, and the emphasis on be, because there's a difference between I am an artist and I am being an artist, I feel like, because can be an action word kind of, but I feel like being is more an action word because I'm actually producing. I can call myself and say I am an artist, but my personal feeling is that I am not being an artist unless I create art. In the special, she talks about daring greatly, which is one of her book titles, and I'm going to read the quote, which was the spark behind her naming the book Daring Greatly. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or how the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know victory nor defeat. Theodore Roosevelt. I actually found this quote in the past 6 months, and I thought it was very poignant when I first came across it. And I remember posting it on Facebook and on Instagram. And And sometimes you can't go to the next level of your art because you're afraid to fail. And this is especially as adults. And something I was thinking about is that I would be considered an old soul. And so I feel like my childhood wasn't really a childhood because of the old soul aspect. And so even when I was in middle school and high school, I was worried too much about failure like adults are, and I wasn't that like free caring kid where I could just jump off the house or something like that and have no fear. So I feel like it's particularly in art and basketball, that's what held me back. Like I was naturally a great artist, and then I was really good at basketball, and I always played up a year when I played AAU. But by the time I got to high school, I was a bit stunted in that I didn't have the confidence to kind of grow as a player, and then I didn't have the best coaching that would help me, that could identify that I had the potential but just didn't have the courage and the confidence and kind of lead me on the right path. And then in art, I always try to do art in projects, but I just never took the art class, at least in school. And so I feel like maybe part of being the old soul or just the personality I had, I didn't kind of go out on a limb a lot, and so that stunted and my growth as far as art and basketball. And like, you know, art, especially in your childhood, that's when you're kind of drawing all the time, and that's where you're building up your skill set. And I just didn't have that repetition. Like I always chose art supplies as presents, but I wasn't always using my art supplies. And you won't know victory or defeat if you don't try. And there's a really good quote. I feel like I was introduced to it in A Field of Dreams, but the quote is, "Do you know why the Native American rain dance always worked? Because the Native Americans would keep dancing until it rained." And that's attributed to Sherman Alexie. And most of the things you're good at is because you kept going and didn't quit. And that's kind of the crux of being good in art, is that if you just keep going and you're practicing purposefully, you're going to have to get better. Now, if you're just practicing and you're not using good techniques, then you can practice forever and always be subpar. But if you're like watching YouTube videos or doing tutorials or reading books, if you keep going, there's a point where it's going to click. And I think a lot of us fail because we just gave up and we didn't keep going. And so that, when I first heard that quote, I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. If they're doing the rain dance and they're just doing the rain dance for maybe 2 weeks, the rain dance worked because they did it until it rained. And it's not like to say that they brought on the rain, but it's just a testament to not giving up until your goal is met. Another thing she talks about is you're brave with your life. You choose to be in the arena. Think gladiators fighting when you think of the arena. You choose to be in the arena. You're going to get your butt kicked. You're going to fall. You're going to fail. Not you're going to risk failure, which a lot of people don't understand from her doing her workshops. Not you're going to risk failure. You're going to know failure if you're brave with your life. So you're going to know failure intimately. And then vulnerability is not comfortable. Choose courage over comfort. And then from what I got from that is that you can never grow into the unknown while being comfortable. And we need to learn that failure isn't a bad thing, it's a part of life. So, I mean, in anything in life, if it's comfortable, you're probably not growing. And a lot of things in my art journey have been uncomfortable, and they're still uncomfortable because I still haven't put in the hours that I need to. But there are times, you know, especially if you're one of those kids who just were natural at everything that you put your mind to. I'm sure once you get to a place where you're at a thing where it's hard. I don't think I was one of those kids. I was like really smart and I could get things, but I don't think I was like a natural. But I'm sure for those type of people, it's probably even more difficult. And being comfortable gets you nowhere except comfortability. And then the idea that failure is a bad thing, definitely need to change, flip that on its head, because failure just means that you're trying something that you haven't done before. So if you, like the guy Sanguru, the Indian guy, he has a video on this that was like phenomenal, in that he was just talking about if it comes easy, it's probably not growing you. So if you have these big dreams that you are not prepared for, you don't already have a skill set for it, then you're going to fail in getting to it. And so failure is just a part of life, and it should not have a negative connotation. It just should be part of the journey. And so when you're trying to learn a new skill, whether that's personally on the job, if you don't get it right the first time, or even the 10th time, or even the 50th time, like, it's going to come eventually, and you shouldn't give up. Another point she had, vulnerability is not about winning. It's not about losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. So that's a big thing about doing this YouTube channel, trying to be consistent and seeing if it pays off. Currently, like, my views are low, my comments are even lower, but I'm trying to be courageous and keep putting out content and hope that it's helping someone. And I've been lucky to see some comments from people on other platforms that let me know that I'm helping at least 2 people. But I'm totally okay with producing this content for 1 person. And so I'm like, pretty much November, December is when I started getting serious about producing content for this channel. And I possibly, like, there were days where I would just record video after video and then put them all out at the same time. But then in the new year, I really wanted to do that consistent weekly posting of videos. And so this is important for me to just have something that's consistent, and that possibly can go into other aspects of my life. And so I think it's important for me to just put the content out there, because I'm just at the beginning. Like, it's just been, hasn't even been 6 months yet, so I'm not like getting sad about my views or anything, because I've watched enough YouTube channels to know that people who are maybe famous now, which that's not my goal, but people who have substantial YouTube channels now have had them for 7 to 10 years. And then they're like now getting a lot of recognition for it. And that's how things are done in comedy, because I have a twin brother who's a comedian, and I know from like watching stuff about Kevin Hart and other comedians, people think that because they're famous now, that it was like or when they became famous, it was like a overnight success. But a lot of these comedians have been on the stage for a decade or more, and then they're getting their break. So you have to consistently put in the work, and it's going to pay off at one point, because all the work that you're putting in is preparing you for something. Like for my YouTube channel, all the content I'm creating, for whenever some like random animation professional or some random celebrity or something decides to like share my video about something, and then a flock of people come to my channel, at least they'll have like 30 videos right now to consume, to see if they like my style, like what I'm saying. But if you just kind of become an overnight celebrity or overnight success, and you only got one video, then there's not really anything to catch people's eye, and then they'll just come and then immediately go away. It's like a microwave. I'm trying to build an oven. I'm not about that microwave. So another point that Brené Brown makes is vulnerability is not weakness. It's our most active way of measuring courage. And so my takes from this is why we need to reprogram ourselves, because we're taught that we should be brave, but we're also taught that vulnerability is weakness, especially men. And that's just not true. Even me, like choosing to speak about the topics I speak about is courageous, because I'm sure there are people who don't like my channel because I choose to focus on being Black, being a woman, and centering those topics. And so I would have possibly more subscribers if my topics were more general, but I also don't care. So I have a purpose in why I choose to speak about topics. It's very personal. I'm not sure if I necessarily wish somebody could have warned me about certain things, because even in the things that I was not prepared to deal with, I figured it out. But just in case some other people want to be prepared for what's coming ahead, or wants to kind of get insight into different things, whether it's about being a minority in this industry, about being a woman in this industry, or just wanting to see someone that looks like them or is close to who they are, explaining topics that maybe other people have spoke about, but they just want to see it from a face that is a minority or a face that is a woman. Just because, and I might have a different perspective on certain things, and can provide that. Like, that's what's the point of diversity. Not only just having a minority or a person or like a woman for just quota's sake, but there are different perspectives that different people have, and it can provide a lot of information that can solve problems, or just looking at it a different way, and can just pivot and do something different, not always doing the same thing over and over again. Another thing she says, there's a bunch of people in the cheap seats that will never step foot in the arena, but will make it their job to hurl hateful things toward us, and we have to get out of the habit of catching them and dissecting them and holding them close to our hearts. We have to let them drop on the floor. You don't have to stomp it or kick it. Just step over it and keep going. You can't take criticism and feedback from people who are not brave with their lives. And so what I took from this was specifically the part about dropping it. She makes a point to say, don't stomp it or kick it. Like, don't give it the time of day. Don't get angry at people. Just ignore it and keep it moving. Because, like, there are important people in your life where what they say means something. And so you shouldn't give that space and trust and vulnerability and acknowledgement to just some random Joe Schmo. Like those people whose opinion you value, they've earned it. The people who just hurl things at you just for whatever reason have not earned that space to give it that much thought. So stop holding on to that stuff, and don't even be like, yes, let me slam this. Just ignore it. Just step over it. Because it's not that serious. Like, because they're not anybody to you. Another thing was, especially in an online space, anonymity allows people to be cowards. And then even when anonymity isn't necessarily taken away, but when a celebrity or when the person whose content it is decides to respond, then the person who has the anonymity becomes a dog with its tail between its legs. Because like every time I've seen someone say something out of pocket, and then the person who they're commenting on their content responds directly to the person, like I feel like 9.9 times out of 10 the person's like, oh no, I didn't mean it, like I love your work, and so it's like you think you can get away with it because either they're never going to see it, you're behind this profile that you created just to do this, and so it happens more with people who are actually real people than, you know, the egg on Twitter or the blank profile pic on Facebook. But it's just like, what, I don't even know what gives people the audacity to even comment on certain things and to say like the worst things. But as soon as the person comments back, it's like they consider them human again, and then it's a human interaction instead of them being this vicious troll. And like, why do you want to enter vicious troll land? I don't get it. Another point that Brené brings up is the opposite of belonging is fitting in. So she just mentions that fitting in is kind of changing what you do, changing your norms to fit what other people do, and belonging is being yourself, and then whatever kind of group you're a part of, you belong to now. You don't have to kind of assimilate to belong. That's the opposite. That's actually the opposite of belonging. So what I took away from that was, don't create art you think will get noticed. And I've come across this idea in multiple YouTube videos that I've watched, and people encouraging you to create whatever you like to create. Like, I know when I was in middle school, everybody was drawing the Pokemon and all that stuff. And I didn't even watch Dragon Ball Z, but I was drawing the Pokemon, you know, because everybody else was drawing it. And, you know, when you're an artist, sometimes you're like, oh, mermaids are popular, or fairies are popular, or this is popular, so I'm going to draw that so I can get noticed. But you're actually going into murky water, and you're going to be noticed less. You're going to be a small fish in a big pond. If you create whatever you want, you could possibly be a big fish in a small pond. When you start to do your own thing, you'll find your place of belonging as yourself and not as an imposter. So, like, one part of an imposter syndrome could be that you're not authentically showing up as yourself, and you're assimilating to other people. So there's the one part of imposter syndrome where you just think you're not good enough. But if you also change yourself, you're also kind of magnifying your imposter syndrome, because you're actually an imposter, because you're not yourself. So if you want to draw knights in shining armor, if you want to draw colorful buses, if you want to draw shoes, do what you want to do and draw what you want to draw, because there will be people out there that like it. She says, belonging is belonging to yourself first, speaking your truth, telling your story, and never betraying yourself for other people. True belonging does not require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. And so something I take away is, I recently saw a post on Instagram where a Black artist was encouraging other Black artists that you don't have to create Black art to be a Black artist. And that was like relieving to a lot of people, because some people just want to draw clouds. Some people just want to draw whatever they want, and they don't want to be in the prison of being a Black artist, so I got to draw Black art. And so that spoke to a lot of people, which I'm glad that it spoke to a lot of people, but it didn't speak to me. And I didn't feel the need to comment on it and be like, no, you're wrong, because they're not wrong. Like, that spoke to certain people. It just didn't speak to me because just because I naturally want to create Black art, but also there is more agency to create whatever you want in the traditional visual art, because traditional visual art has been around for centuries, and so there is plenty of Black art out there. But I personally feel in my industry, and this is not to say that Black 3D artists or animators have to create Black art too, because of the lack of in our industry. This is just for me, because there is so few in our industry, and then on top of that, sometimes Black artists in 3D or animation are additionally and also creating nothing but white characters. I feel like it's important that I show representation for me and kind of the diaspora. So when you take a look at my computer and see my inspiration folder, it has Black cowboys, it has Black firemen, it has Detroit related stuff, it has even Sikhs, it has I want to do like Native Americans. When explorers first came, they were dark skinned as well. It wasn't just the light skinned Native Americans you see now. I want characters with broad noses. I want to display characters of different African tribes. I want to talk about our hair and our culture through my art. And it's fine that I want to do that, and it's totally fine that other people don't want to do that. But that's kind of, if I'm, again, a big fish in a small pond doing that, then that can cause more people to be attracted to me, and then that could be another way of recruiting more diversity in animation, because I'm creating things that other people are not creating. So it's all strategic. Another point that Brené Brown talks about in her special is that courage/vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. So what I took away from that is, I don't know what I'm doing as I venture into digital sculpting, as I venture into creating a daily art challenge, as I'm trying to get into virtual reality. But I still have to do it if I want to accomplish the goals that I set for myself. And the future success of this YouTube channel is uncertain, but I'm just getting started, and I must persist, because this might be my Native American rain dance, and I can't stop until something happens. And there's even a risk in speaking about the topics that I speak about, because in the Google search that people decide to do, if I decide to apply to jobs, I could not get a job because I am so outspoken. Sometimes companies see that as a threat or a liability. And so I'm taking a risk by even having a YouTube channel and not necessarily being a name where I could have a name in my industry as this top 3D modeler and they're gonna hire me anyway. And then the emotional exposure of particularly having this YouTube channel is that there could be one day where this group of people will find my channel and then just start spewing all this kind of hate in the comment section because they feel that what I'm doing is racist or sexist or anything. But that is just a risk I have to take because it could possibly never happen. And that's a big thing. Like, we create all these stories in our minds and it could not happen. And then something I've heard, I don't even know where I heard this from, but then you're suffering twice. So you suffer the one time you made it up, and then you suffer when it happened. So you could suffer twice if it actually happens. You could suffer once if it never happens, or you could suffer no time at all if you just don't try to think of what can go wrong. So I'm about suffering 0 times, or at most 1 time, because it could happen and I didn't know it was coming. And then, oh well, just keep it moving. Another point that she had was winning is not always coming in first. Winning is sometimes doing the really brave thing. So maybe winning is not for you. Maybe winning is not being the best illustrator out there. Maybe winning is finally being able to draw hands. And for all my artists, you know how real that is. Maybe winning is not being the best 3D modeler out there. Maybe your winning is being able to 3D model or digitally sculpt simple characters. Maybe my winning is not having 20,000 YouTube subscribers. Maybe my winning is having my current of 100 plus subscribers and having an impact on those people. Like, something she talks about is just having gratitude. Like, people who express gratitude more often don't have those times where they're creating a mountain out of a molehill and trying to think, oh man, I'm about to go meet this awesome person, but I might die on the way or something like that. Like, when you get into practice of gratitude, you're just grateful for whatever happens. And that's a big thing in life, because you know, all these celebrities who get all this money, you see, especially the ones that end up committing suicide, like, money isn't happiness. Money will be happiness for a lot of people because they're poor and they need to pay bills. But at the end of the day, your happiness needs to come from just appreciating where you are in life. You can have goals and try to get better, but appreciate where you are at your current state. Because if you're always chasing the higher, you're never going to be satisfied and you're never going to be happy. One of the last points I want to go over is when she said vulnerability is hard, scary, and dangerous, but you don't want to get to the end and say, what if? And that kind of reminded me, I know not everyone is religious, but there is this quote that I really like from Irma Bombeck, and it says, when I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have a single bit of talent left and could say, I used everything you gave me. And I think I have that because I have like a picture frame of quotes in my bathroom, and I think that's one of the quotes that I have in my bathroom, because that's essentially what I want to do. Like, I'm even still trying to learn talents that I can give away. And so I really want to be in a place where I'm using it all. And I remember when I was growing up, I would always say, I want to be rich so I can give it away. And that's still my mentality. And I even had like my dad and an ex-boyfriend where they would give me money for a birthday, Christmas, and they would have to specifically tell me, don't spend this on me. Because I am the type where you give me money for my birthday, and the first thing I'm thinking about, ooh, what can I buy them with this new money I have? And so, like, when I receive things, my first thought is how I can help others. Which, in 2020, that's gonna change, because I need to be more selfish and think about myself more and take care of the what ifs for me, myself, and I. Which I will still be helping other people, but I just need to put myself first. And so, again, this is Brené Brown, A Call to Courage on Netflix. I highly recommend it. Feel free to leave comments about anything you thought about what I said in the video. Feel free to leave comments about what you think about her hour special. Please like, comment, subscribe, sign up for post notifications. If you have any ideas for topics you want me to cover, please let me know that. And I will see you in the next video.